Welcome to the latest Celtics Rundown live stream here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Bobby Krivitsky, and back again, a good friend of the program from Boston.com, Khari Thompson. Khari, thanks for taking the time.
No problem. What's up, Bobby?
Happy to have you on here. Certainly someone who our loyal audience, they loved having you on the first round. And now as the playoffs approach, we got a lot to dive into. I'm excited to pick your brain on it. Khari, we start with the most pressing topic, I would say, surrounding the Boston Celtics, and that is the concern over Jaylen Brown's knee injury. Where are you at as you take the temperature of that situation?
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, you wanna have a healthy Jaylen for the playoffs. He's healthy enough to play, obviously, and he has been effective in some of these games. Like he dropped 31 against the Suns, and he was pretty efficient. But when you look at what Jaylen does, he's your physical guy. Like he's your bruiser, and he's picking up a lot of dudes, on defense and guarding the best team's player a lot of times. So that takes a lot of strain, and if he's less than 100%, I think it's definitely going to be a big hit for the Celtics.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, and maybe it benefits Jaylen in the long run, is that he can't win with athleticism, at least to the degree and the extent he's accustomed to. So
Right.
now it helps that he's at a stage in a career where he's a more mature, more evolved player, and certainly more experienced one. And so being able to win more cerebrally, where it's, okay, I'm not going to blow past my defender and hang on the rim. It's, let me shift gears. Let me pull these different levers that I might not have to as often as I will this postseason run. Quite frankly, Khari, I don't know if that's great news for the Celtics this go around, but I do think that it's ultimately something that can be a positive for Jaylen Brown in his development.
Yeah, definitely. He said he's been studying Paul Pierce, which I think is ultimately a good thing, because Paul, as great as he wasn't the most athletic guy. He wasn't always blowing by you. So I think that's a good thing for Jaylen's development ultimately. And we'll see. I mean, I think the Celtics are deep enough to the point where they'll be fine for at least the first couple rounds. But once you hit that Eastern Conference Finals and on, it gets rough. Like the Celtics need as close to their full team as they can to get past the Cavs and whoever comes out of the West.
Yeah, they really do. Like you look at how, and granted, regular season and playoffs can become two totally different beasts, but you look at these matchups with OKC and you say, okay, now we might have a lesser version of Jaylen Brown who's worse for wear by the time you get to June, if you make it there. That's certainly a cause for concern, sight unseen, I would say, but it is going to be interesting. And then, Khari, one of the topics that has been bandied about is, does Jaylen miss the first round of the playoffs? I don't know about you. I want to get your take on it. Quite frankly, I'll just be honest. I think that's ridiculous. I'd say it's just highly unlikely. I won't outright dismiss it, but I certainly would be shocked if that happens.
So Jaylen's been playing in these meaningless regular season games. I mean, he was out last night, but he's been playing. And he said it wasn't about the All-NBA stuff, but I mean, he's so close to the threshold that it's like, yeah, I think he's probably going to play these last 2 games in Charlotte so he can get over it. And so then he's going to miss a playoff series. Really? That's the logic? He's going to miss the playoff series after playing in these crappy games? I don't believe it. I think he's going to be ready to go, locked in. Postseason's where you earn your money. And, Jaylen has a lot of things that he has to defend. I mean, he is the finals MVP. This is his time. Like, he's playing.
I mean, people within the organization can be, and I more say this with his teammates in mind above everyone else, they can be as understanding to, okay, the training staff and the medical team looked at him and their advice was to sit at the first round. But like you said, if he's playing in some of these games where there's not really something on the line and he's gunning for all NBA and then he misses the first round of the playoffs and he's not there for his teammates, that's not a good look. And you wouldn't blame someone if it didn't resonate well with them. So I'm with you. It's not a prediction, but I just don't think that he's going to make an all-NBA team at this point. It's really unfair because he got hosed last year. He should have been on it. He had this great career evolution and he was worthy of it. Now, it did kind of come back around with a nice consolation, if you will, with Eastern Conference and NBA Finals MVP. So he got his flowers, but at the same time, that's where he got screwed last year. I just don't think he makes it this year. So not a prediction, but I would like to see him sit these final 2 games.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do it, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he did it last night, so that was some hope. But man, winning Finals MVP is no consolation prize. Nobody can take away.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I was in air quotes.
Yeah, so nobody can take away what Jaylen did last year, and hopefully he recognizes that and doesn't take what might come with the All-NBA stuff too hard.
What's up, Daniel? We're talking Jaylen Brown right now here on Celtics Rundown. Appreciate you joining us. And yeah, when it comes to his legacy, what he does in the playoffs matters a hell of a lot more than whether or not he makes All-NBA, which he's already done. It's why he's got the Supermax contract. He's not fighting for it. And so when it comes to that legacy discussion, I certainly understand the value in stacking as many All-NBA selections onto your basketball reference page and your bio as possible. But this, to me, would be prioritizing something that is less significant. It's not the ultimate goal, and it's not what weighs the most for even his individual legacy.
I'll put it this way. The Celtics have an opportunity to do something this year that hasn't been done since the Bill Russell era. None of your favorite Celtics teams, except for the Russell Celtics, have repeated. Like, Cowens and them won 2 out of 3. And Bird, the 80 Celtics were great, but they didn't repeat. 2008 Celtics, they didn't do it. So Tatum and Brown have a chance to put themselves in a category that's really of their own, like in terms of the modern era NBA and being a Celtic team who repeats. I mean, that's pretty rare company, just to be up there with the Bill Russell Celtics. So I think that would do way, way, way more for Jaylen's legacy, as you said, than some All-NBA team that we're not even going to remember down the road.
Yeah, well said right there. It's an excellent point. And when you talk about what vaults Jaylen Brown up as high as possible among Celtics lore and his hierarchy within franchise history, like you said, you go back to back, that stands out. That catapults you quite a few spots. And so we shall see what happens here. Also, Khari, the last thing I want is the discourse from Celtics fans to become like it was with the Garnett Big Three era, where it's, if we were healthy this postseason, we would have had more rings. Had the Doc Rivers line there. I don't need any part of that going around this time.
100% agree. Need him fully healthy.
And need him fully healthy. At a minimum, health is a part of a championship, regardless of year, sport, team, you name it. So if the Celtics don't survive the war of attrition, that stinks and it's tough to move off of, but that's a part of what it takes to win a championship. So I think that just comes with the territory.
Yeah, 100%.
And then my question to you, with Luke Kornet, let's go from one of the marquee players on this team to someone who has become not just a rotation fixture, but all of a sudden him and Tatum as a pick and roll tandem have their names up there with Jokic and Jamal Murray, where in terms of points per possession out of the pick and roll, they're generating the second most behind that other duo that I just mentioned. When you look at what Luke Kornet has done this season, do you feel like that ultimately come free agency that he has priced himself out of Boston?
It's hard because the Celtics are going to, I think, be in cost-cutting mode pretty soon. And they got Luke on a cheap one-year deal. That was really a sweetheart deal for them. And Luke has been playing really, really well. Ideally, you'd love to keep Luke because your big depth already is kind of rough, right? So, like, KP, love him, but he's hurt a lot. And even with him, he makes a massive salary. And with this second tax apron stuff, he's one of the names that's being floated as you might have to do something. Like him and Drew are two names that come to mind where it's like Celtics might have to make some hard decisions coming up. So it's like with Luke, I mean, you see how tight things are getting with the second apron. They let Jaden Springer go for nothing just because his $4 million was going to count as like $16 million against the cap. And you take what Luke's making this year and the potential of what he could draw on the market. the figures are going to look a lot different this year, I think, because Luke has been a key part of what they've been doing.
Yeah, Big Luke was the first name to sign in free agency last go around. That first Woj tweet when free agency kicked off was Luke Kornet, and he left money on the table last summer. That's what it would take this go around, not to mention he's going to have opportunities to be a starting center somewhere else next season if he wants it. So no one could blame him if he goes for the biggest bag and that type of an opportunity. The only real hope for the Celtics, Khari, is that he's willing to leave money on the table. And how much, like a theory out there is, well, maybe Al Horford and Luke Kornet roughly swap contracts, at least in terms of sizes, percentage on the cap, all that, right? And so maybe it's a little more even than Horford's making this season to help keep him close to what the market's offering Kornet. But at the end of the day, it's presumably going to require a discount and Kornet saying, I love the situation I'm in and the people that I'm with, and I prioritize that stability and that happiness over trying to see if the grass is greener somewhere else.
Good point, Bobby. It's all about which kind of green Luke Kornet likes more. Is it Celtic green or is it those greenback dollars? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, if he likes the way his lawn's looking over here, then maybe he sticks. Maybe he sticks around. If he's looking at some of those offers and says, "Boy, this is life-changing money for generations of Kornets," then no one's going to blame him. And like I said, a starting role is going to be attached to the largest offers he has in free agency. So we'll see what happens with Kornet. As you pointed out there, it would be a huge blow to their center depth. And as much as you don't want to draft for need, depending on what they can get on either a trade if they shake up the roster or some type of a roughly veteran minimum contract, then it becomes an immediate area of focus entering the draft where they'll be towards the end of the first round. So we'll see what happens with Kornet in that center position. It's certainly something to keep an eye on. A player that they've hit on here, Khari, in the last draft is Baylor Scheierman, who, as he gets more opportunities, sometimes guys get exposed, but he just keeps looking better and better and more comfortable out there.
Yeah, he's kind of been pushing Jordan Walsh for minutes, man. I mean, Scheierman.
I think he's ahead of him.
Yeah. I mean, he's been getting opportunities. I mean, Scheierman has looked good, and hopefully he can be like a lower priced Sam Hauser in his development. Like, I think that's kind of the goal for what he can be, as just a big wing who can shoot it and hopefully develops into a pretty good defender.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about as the Celtics are currently constructed, there's years where Sam Hauser's contract might not be that big, but when you factor in the luxury tax penalty, it's like $90 million to keep him on board. I mean, goodbye. Like, yeah. There's no way they're paying that kind of a cost for Sam Hauser. Now, maybe other guys get traded and it becomes more manageable to keep him here, but I don't think anyone would be surprised. You start to see it and the discourse gets louder the more that Scheierman pops. Is this looks like not a Wally Pipp situation because that was an injury replacement type of deal, but you get the idea of Scheierman ultimately progressing to the point where he takes Hauser's role.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that was the vision when they first drafted him. Just like almost like Sam Hauser insurance, because this situation's real. I mean, I didn't realize how deep the luxury tax stuff was until like recently. And it's like, there are some pretty steep penalties. Like, did you hear Wick say like nobody's going to be in the luxury tax more than 2 years? I mean, in the second apron more than 2 years, and they're already 2 years deep into it. So some tough cost-cutting measures are going to come.
Yeah, that is for sure. And a very important quote from Wick to come out right there. And it's the reality of a horrible collective bargaining agreement from a player's perspective and what this does, where there are so many situations that players and teams want to stick together, but they can't. You get players that are worthy of being on an NBA roster that get squeezed out. And so ultimately, this is where we're at. And it becomes, I think it played a role into the Nuggets roster and Michael Malone being jettisoned, for example. Not saying it was the primary, but I think it's on the list of factors that ultimately played into his demise in Denver. And so we'll see what happens here with who's on the Celtics roster long-term and all that. But Scheierman, I mean, it's very important that I think the more people see him, they take note of oh, he's not just a shooter. Like you hear it, but it doesn't always resonate until you see it. And it's, wow, his passing off the dribble is pretty impressive. Everyone knows it's like you used to cover the Patriots beat. It's like the Chris Hogan lacrosse thing. Everyone knows this guy was a football player. He was a star quarterback in high school. And so he's got that going for him as far as being comfortable making plays off the dribble, which you have to be in today's NBA. You can't just be a spot up shooter. Those guys have been phased out of the game's evolution. And then defensively, he's certainly not the quickest or most athletic guy, but he holds his own on that end of the floor. And he's physical, he's scrappy, he has good positioning, he plays drives well, and he likes getting involved for rebounds, where he's got that Aaron Nesmith reckless abandon to his game on the glass. So I like what Scheierman brings to the table way beyond just his scoring.
And he's older too, so he's physically developed. He's not a guy that you're like, oh, he needs to put on weight. Like he's ready. He's ready. Like, and he's also experienced, having played at Creighton for a long time. And he played with Mike Miller's kid at Creighton, Mason Miller. So I would be curious to ask him if he actually picked up anything from Mike, because I'm sure Mike has been around that program.
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly perhaps worthy of a Khari Thompson exclusive. We've got another one from Khari that we're going to get to here shortly. When it comes to Scheierman and that last point you made about him being an older prospect, it's not a coincidence that in the draft, the Celtics drafted two individuals who fit that category. Anton Watson, no longer here, but he was the other one. And they have a championship team with some of their most important players in their prime. And so they want guys that are ready to contribute right now. And with Scheierman, it took a while to get his sea legs, but at the same time, you can see him getting comfortable and what he could mean moving forward to this team as early as next season. That was clearly one of the goals that they had going into the draft last year. And so Scheierman, certainly if they shake up the roster and there's more opportunities for him, that's going to be relevant there, that he is in fact ready to contribute. And you don't have a situation like, to bring up the Nuggets again, where it's guys that are younger and not ready to hold their own. And then there's a drop off to the point of you're blowing over a 20-point lead in the second half of game 7 and your season ends because your top guys are exhausted. And now Jamal Murray has so much mileage on the tires that his knee is a massive problem for them and the coach is gone.
Right. Exactly. You want guys that can step in and contribute. And the Celtics aren't really at a point, as you said, that they really need to be taking long-term hits. I mean, I guess you can, but there was definitely a theme with the draft last year. So Scheierman fit.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if that continues and what it looks like in terms of the draft prospects and their age and at least development when it comes to who the Celtics walk away from that night with, or the 2 days now. We shall see. Looking in the more immediate future, Khari, when it comes to the Celtics' potential opening round playoff opponents, you look at those teams in the play-in. We just saw Orlando last night, who I think it's notable that they're going up against the main Celtics pretty much, and they couldn't crack 100 points. Then you have the Atlanta Hawks, the Chicago Bulls, and the Miami Heat. You look at those teams, your preferred outcome, ideal opponent for the Celtics in round 1 is?
If we got to play anyone, I think the Celtics would beat the Heat the easiest. I just don't think without Jimmy, they have enough offensive firepower to keep pace with the Celtics. Well, actually, the Bulls would be pretty easy too. I mean, give me the Bulls. Bulls or Heat, either one of them. I know they're the lower seed, so that's kind of the chalk answer. But those teams, they can't match up with the Celtics. I think they would be relatively quick work. I think Atlanta will be surprisingly tough. Like I think Trae Young loves big moments. He loves playing at the Garden. I think Dyson Daniels is pretty underrated. I like what Atlanta has, and Orlando too. I mean, Orlando's they're young, they're scrappy, they get a lot of points in the paint, but they can't shoot. That's what's wrong with them. So I mean, all those teams are flawed. Obviously, that's why they're low seeds. But if you're asking me one team you don't want to see Atlanta. I would say out of that group.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's a shame that they lost Jaylen Johnson because he was such a big piece for them. This young emerging player who goes down. They haven't had him for a while, obviously. But like you said, Trae Young can go off. They got the great barrier thief in Dyson Daniels. Zach Risachet is really continued to make significant strides as a rookie and the number 1 pick who's looking more and more impressive by the month. So Atlanta, they got two bigs there in Okongwu and Capella. They have a lot going for them as a team. Ultimately, the real answer is it shouldn't matter. These series should not go beyond 5 games. A sweep is legitimately on the table against all 4 of these potential opponents. It's interesting that if someone wants to make the graphic of Khari's pick, it goes Chicago or Atlanta, or excuse me, Chicago or Miami, because I look at Miami, and this is my concern. It's the PTSD, Khari. It's not, can the Heat upset them? It's too many times have the Celtics squared off with the Heat, and we've seen an injury. Just look at Porzingis almost every time he goes to South Beach. It's that Eric Spoelstra, still for my money, the best active coach in the NBA, and I really like their young talent and what he can get out of them. So maybe it's not much of a fight. It really wasn't last year either. But at the same time, there's just certain risks and maybe some stuff that gets on tape for Cleveland or Oklahoma City, for example, that Eric Spoelstra tries that ultimately feeds into the Celtics coming up short this year.
Yeah, Spo's still good enough to steal a game or two for sure. I mean, that's a great point. And Bam, I could see Bam having a game where he goes off too, where he just has like a 22 and 15 type game, and the other guys hit a bunch of threes and the Celtics go cold. I could also see that happening. But if you look at just how they've played against the Celtics this year, I mean, they've been held under 100 points in the majority of the matchups. That's not going to win you games. That's not going to win you a series. They just, they got to hope that Hero has a big series. They got to hope that Bam has a game where he just goes off. And I don't know. I just can't see them scoring enough in a sustainable model. Like, what even happened to Jaime Jaquez? Like, I thought Jaime Jaquez was going to be like a star. He's like not even getting as much run as he did as a rookie. So it's like, I don't know, man. What's going on with them?
I'm still holding my Jaime Jaquez stock, but seeing him not get in until the end of that most recent game in Boston, as a stockholder, it didn't feel great to see that happen. I like him. I still believe he can play. I don't have the answer to that question. I've even thrown that out there to the Heat fans who come into this live stream. What's going on with him? Why is he so far out of the rotation? Who knows? I'm hoping it's just a sophomore setback and he picks it up going into his junior season, because I'm still a believer.
Yep, totally agree.
And then, I mean, you made a great point there about Miami not having the offensive firepower. Orlando can be a really difficult watch at times. So I still look at it and say, well, they've got Paolo and they've got Franz, but losing Jalen Suggs was a massive blow to a team that was already struggling with spacing and shooting to begin with. So Orlando, that would be a very physical series, but none of these teams, it's kind of inexcusable if the Celtics allowed that first round matchup against any of them to go beyond 5 games.
But the Celtics better not come in there with that mentality, because this year they've been so inconsistent, and I feel like they've been really overlooking teams. And I hate when they do that, because they actually have been losing these games this season. Like, they had such a rough stretch. Like, they almost lost to the Pelicans, man. That scarred me. They're very lucky that CJ McCollum missed that bank shot at the end, because I was like, y'all are out here messing around, almost losing to the Pelicans. Y'all lost to the Hawks twice. Like, y'all just – this Celtics team, they need to get that mind right and not take anyone for granted, because teams are starting to figure them out a little bit more than they did last year.
Yeah, I also remember that Pelicans game being a very late night for the two of us at TD Garden. And I'll tell you, McCollum misses that bank shot and the Celtics hold on. It's not like the vibe around that game would have been that much worse if it had gone in and the Pelicans actually won. It was still like, I don't want to call it an ugly win, but the taste wasn't great from that one. And I look at the Celtics, Khari, and I think it's notable what time of year that was for how things were looking then, that it's not a coincidence by any means that the dip they had was December and into January. And now they're locked in. Kristaps said after they blew out the Suns in Phoenix that he credited Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff for getting them to play at a very high level every night now here down the stretch, regardless of opponent. And so I think you can see that this team is kicking it into gear at the right time, and that ultimately it's made for some pull your hair out type of games, but I do think that they're looking their best right now and resembling the Celtics team from last year, where it was no days off, win the day type of mantra. I think they're operating with that approach right now.
Yeah, they're peaking at the right time, which is a great point. And this is what you want to see heading into the playoffs. But I will respectfully push back and say that they felt like much more of a juggernaut last year, and they look more mortal this year. So they can't be coming into it with any type of cockiness. Like, they need to treat it like every round matters.
Yeah, you would hope that what they went through 2 years ago, where it was such a turbulent playoff run. I had my story on Game 5 against the Hawks ready to go and to publish, and then Trae Young hits a 30-footer and things change. They shouldn't have even been in that position. DeJounte Murray wasn't playing in that game. They go down 0-3 to the Heat, and maybe if Tatum doesn't get hurt on the first play of Game 7, it's a different outcome, but you left yourselves no margin for error, and unfortunately that happened. So hopefully they have learned from their experiences, the good last year, the bad every other year, but especially 2 playoff runs ago. So we'll see, but definitely, as Jaylen Brown likes to say, don't play with your food. Just handle your business, get through this first round as quickly as possible, as healthy as possible, and go from there. We'll see who you match up against. Ideally, it's the Knicks, given what's happened, though. Khari, I want to wrap by giving you your flowers now. We talked about that with Jaylen Brown at the start of the program. Fitting that we give them to you right now, because you've certainly earned them with some big-time pieces that you've cranked out for Boston.com recently. The one that I want to lock in on is Boston getting a Big 3 team. Though I think people hear Big 3 and they know, but just in case you don't, it's Ice Cube's league. You got all these NBA veterans, some of your favorite players of yesteryear, now going out there competing, traveling the country. They've gone international. They played at the O2 at one point, and Jaylen Brown joined them. But what do people need to know on a great scoop again from you about the Big 3 coming to Boston?
I appreciate that, Bobby. So yeah, Boston's getting a Big 3 team. Before the Big 3, they had a touring model. So now they're switching to location based as they change up the business model. So Boston's one of 8 cities getting a team. And actually today on Boston.com, I have the roster for the Boston.
Check it out, people.
Yeah. So there's 5 roster spots. We know 3 of them because they have to save 2 spots for the draft. But the captain's going to be Kevin Murphy, who was the Big 3 MVP in 2022. If you're an OG NBA draft expert, you'll remember him from 2012 getting drafted in the second round by the Jazz. He didn't stick that long in the NBA, but he's had a lengthy overseas career, and he's been balling in the Big 3. So he's the team captain. The other 2 players are going to be Deshaun Stevens, not Deshaun Stevenson, Deshaun Stevens, different guy. Just make sure that's that distinction. It's not the 13-year NBA vet. This is a guy who played most of his career overseas, but he's a big with a lengthy wingspan, and he's known for his inside scoring and rebounding and shot blocking. And then they have another wing and Scotty Hobson, who was actually with the Maine Celtics last season. And Scotty was a big-time player. Like, he was like a top 10 prospect in 2008 coming out of high school. Like, he was ranked ahead of other guys in his class like Kemba and stuff like that. But, he had a good year. He had a good career at Tennessee. He was first-team All-SEC. But, again, another one of those overseas G League guys who's going to come back to Boston after a year at the Maine Celtics and play with the Big 3. So we got the roster. The Big 3 is going to be back at TD Garden in July. And they had the championship game at the Garden last year. It was a lot of fun. Gerald Green was MVP for all you Celtics fans who remember Gerald Green back in the day. And Gary Payton was coach of the year. And Gary Payton will be the head coach of the Boston Ball Hogs, which is the name of the Boston team. So, if you want to come support the Big 3, they'll be back in July. And, yeah, Boston got a team now. So I guess go Hogs, right?
Go Hogs. I mean, you got a Big 3 coach of the year and a Celtics legend in Gary Payton. You've got the MVP of it a couple of years ago. You've got Scotty Hobson, which is the theme of why this resonates with fans, where that's a name that I feel like I haven't heard in a long time, but I remember him balling out at Tennessee back in the day. And then you see guys who you loved in the NBA. Maybe you played with them in 2K, for example, whatever the case may be. The names in the Big 3 they resonate with people. And it's cool to see them play now and just tune in and see what that's like. And like you said, it's not a touring model anymore, but there's still a chance that they're going to be in your city. And clearly that's going to be the case with Boston. So Celtics fans in the region who have an opportunity, it's a really fun experience to go see the Big Three. So I highly recommend checking it out.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Shout out to Ice Cube.
Shout out to Cube, hitting big on the Big Three concept here and the names that he's brought in. I'm interested to see how this goes now and how it resonates with people in each of these areas that now have their own team settling in. It's going to be fun to see. And you get big names. People will go just to see Gary Payton, even though he's coaching, he's not playing. He's still someone who puts on a show and is entertaining. He's not going to be quiet. He's not going to be bashful. So it will be fun, and it's worth checking out. Khari, right now, I want to give you the floor because certainly the Big Three stuff is worth everyone taking the time to go check out and read. But you've also cranked out a ton of other hits lately. No surprise, par for the course. But is there any other work along with your social media handles that you want to go ahead and let people know about?
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I did a feature on Sarah Strong. So shout out to UConn women's basketball, but they're national champs. And I went to the Big Three tournament to go check out Sarah Strong, and she's the real deal. UConn obviously is the real deal because they won. So, and also she has a Celtics connection. Allison Feaster, the VP for team organizational one of the Celtics VPs is her mom. So that was cool. I had fun talking to them and doing a feature, a little Celtics adjacent feature. And then, getting ready to hit the playoffs. I'll be on the road for every round. So looking forward to hanging out with you guys and getting more Celtics coverage in. But it's kind of a dead period, man. Like, we got a couple games against Charlotte up now. Like, I guess we can work on some long-term features, but it's really getting ready for this first round. So we'll see, man. We'll see you either in Orlando or Atlanta, probably.
I do love Atlanta. I've never been to Orlando, though, so I'm kind of rooting for that. Either way, we'll get good weather, but it's a guarantee with Orlando, so I'd be happy about that. And I'm excited to hit the road. I'm excited to get our own pickup runs in and everything that comes with playoff basketball at the highest level. So I can't wait for all of it, and I'll pound the table once again. Go check out Khari's work, from the interview with Sarah Strong and talking to Allison Feaster to his work on the Big Three and letting you know what to expect and the scoops that he was able to get on that front. Khari, once again, thank you for taking the time to join us.
Appreciate you, Bobby. It was a pleasure, man. See you at the Garden.
Yes, sir. Can't wait. That wraps up this edition of the Celtics Rundown live stream right here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.